Very interesting story. And one of the things that makes it interesting is that it's one of the few current events with huge implications that where the political sides are not exactly clear. Like this one is not really, the political teams aren't clear, and that doesn't happen very often. So here it is. ABC News has a report. A jury has found Jennifer Crumbley, the mother of Michigan school shooter Ethan Crumbley, guilty of involuntary manslaughter in connection with the shooting deaths of 4 students at Oxford High School in November of 2021. Crumbley was found guilty of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter in connection with the shooting, 1 for each victim: Madison Baldwin, Tate Meyer, Justin Schilling, and Hannah St. Juliana. The jury deliberated for roughly 11 hours. Jennifer and James Crumbley are a rare case of parents being charged in connection with a shooting carried out by their son. James Crumbley, who also faces 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, will have a separate trial in March. And so they're going to jail for the fact that their son committed a school shooting. Now, so this is a very important case. And I think that it's obviously getting some attention. I think it's actually getting more attention than it is. And I'm not sure if everybody quite grasps just how vast the implications are. Because this is really an unprecedented moment in the history of the American legal system. The article said that this is a rare case where the parent of a school shooter is charged. I'm pretty sure it's the first case. So a new precedent is being set. There's a new precedent being set here. And I think the precedent is troubling. I think it's quite troubling. Now, listen, Jennifer Crumbley and her husband, by all accounts, based on everything we heard in the trial, based on everything we've seen, and not to mention, obviously, just based on the fact of what their son did. So based on all that, we can establish beyond any reasonable doubt that these are bad parents. Of course, they failed in spectacular fashion in their basic parenting duties. They were not, just to call them bad parents would be an understatement, and there's no denying that, no disputing it. I certainly don't dispute it. And that's why, on a visceral, emotional level, I understand the people that are cheering this verdict. And from what I've seen anecdotally, I don't know what the surveys would say, what I've seen anecdotally just on social media, it seems like most of the people who've reacted to the story and the verdict yesterday are in favor of it. That's what it seems. Certainly there's a lot of people who are happy about the verdict. And if I'm being guided purely by my feelings of disgust towards parents who apparently didn't even attempt to do their job as parents, and I'm being guided by that, then I would say, hell yeah, go rot in prison. You deserve it. And if I was, God forbid, I was a parent who lost a child in a circumstance like this, even more, I would probably want the parents to suffer for their failures as parents. So I get all that. And I have no interest in defending the parenting job that these 2 people did. There's no defending it. And I would also say that it seems clear to me that it is at least partially their fault that their son went off and murdered innocent people. So if you're blaming them, at least partially for what happened, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think they are at least partially to blame. All of that is true. However, with all of that said, I just have extreme reservations about it. And I'll give you 2 things to think about here. First of all, the prosecutor's case, even though it was ultimately successful, he prevailed. But really, the case that the state was making here, it makes no logical sense. And there are a few reasons for that, but the main one, the big one to my mind, is that they charged Ethan Crumbley, the shooter, as an adult. Right? Now, why is that significant? Well, because in charging him as an adult, and he committed the crime when he was, I think, 15. But they charged him as an adult. And I agree with that. I agree with charging as an adult for a crime like this. Now, 15 is not an adult. But for a crime like this, I think you have to. It's like, what else are you going to do? Send him to juvenile detention and let him out in 5 years? Like, you can't do that. So I agree with the move. I think it's the right move in this case. And if you have someone even at 15 who commits a crime of this sort, well, they just have to go away forever. There's no way that you could ever, like, we cannot contemplate a future where someone who murdered, who's committed mass murder is walking free. If you're like me, there's not a day that goes by that you don't call or text someone you care about. I'm constantly chatting on the phone myself, and my friends at Pure Talk are making it easier and more affordable to connect with the most important people in your life. Pure Talk gives you the phenomenal coverage that you want on America's most dependable 5G network. It's the same coverage you know and love, but for half the price of the other guys. With unlimited plans starting at just $20 a month, the average family saves almost $1,000 a year. A veteran-owned company, Pure Talk, raised $10 million towards veteran debt last year alone. What's more, Pure Talk's customer service team is located right here in the U.S. and can help you make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. I challenge you to stand with a company that champions your values today. So go to puretalk.com/Walsh. Right now, you can save an additional 50% on your first month there. But you got to go to puretalk.com/Walsh to save on wireless with a company you can be proud to spend your money with. Again, puretalk.com/Walsh today. But in charging him as an adult, the state is saying that he is fully culpable, fully competent, and fully responsible for his own actions. That's what it means to charge him as an adult. That's the argument the state is making. And they made it successfully. He got life in prison. But then, when they turn around and charge his parents, blaming them in part for their child's actions, they are also then arguing by extension at the exact same time that Ethan Crumbley was not fully culpable and not fully responsible for his actions. Because to blame the parents to any degree at all is to say that they had some sort of control over this situation, which would mean that the child is not responsible for his actions, at least not completely. So how can they argue both? How can both be true? How can he be fully culpable but not fully culpable at the exact same time? How can Ethan be an adult responsible for his own actions while at the same time being a child whose actions are partially the fault of his parents? Whose parents, who, by the way, even if they were negligent in the extreme, and they still didn't know that he was going to commit the crime. Now, like, obviously, if the parents have direct knowledge that a crime is going to be committed and they don't try to prevent it, or they facilitate the commission of the crime, well, then clearly there's no controversy there. But that's not exactly the claim here. The claim here is like they should have seen it coming. They saw warning signs. They knew that he was troubled. They knew that he had written things about killing people. But that's not the same as saying, like, he told Mom and Dad, I'm going to go commit this shooting. And they said, okay, see you later. Like, that didn't happen. So the claim, again, is that they were really bad parents, basically, and they needed to take better care of their child, which is all, again, true. But I just don't see how you can argue that and at the same time argue that the child is an adult. Like, it seems like it's got to be one or the other in order for the charges to make sense logically. And yet they didn't make sense, and they contradicted, but they got the conviction on both counts. So I want you to think about the implications here, because this is the really the biggest issue, is what is the limiting principle? We all agree that the Crumbleys were bad parents. And I think we all agree that if they were better parents, probably this crime never would have been committed. We can't say that for sure, because people are, even a kid is like their own human being with their own mind, and you know, it's plausible that you could be a perfect parent, basically, and still end up with a kid who does something horrible. It's like, it's unlikely, but it could happen. So, but probably if they had been better parents, this wouldn't have happened. But that same argument applies just as well to many thousands of parents who are still walking free today. I mean, it stands to reason that a large majority of the violent criminals in prison right now have parents who were at least at least as negligent and incompetent and disinterested as the Crumbleys were. So put it out of the way, as a percentage, how many mass murderers, serial killers, and gangbangers do you think had good, attentive parents? Like, does anyone think that it's more than 10%? I mean, 10% is like an extremely generous estimate. It's pretty obvious that, like, the armed robber who is walking into a gas station in some city as we speak right now, stealing everything from the register, and then maybe shooting the cashier just for the sake of it on the way out the door. It's pretty obvious that that person almost certainly has parents who, at best, were negligent. Most likely the father is completely absent, so that's total 100% negligence. And the mother is just not interested in doing anything that could be described as actually mothering her child. So my question is, are we charging all of those parents too? Are we going to round up hundreds of thousands of parents potentially and charge them for their failures? Their failure to do anything at all to prevent their children from becoming violent criminals? I mean, just imagine a lot of these violent criminals in the inner city. Like, imagine what their home life is like. Imagine what kind of parenting is being done here. Some people don't have to imagine it because they've seen this kind of thing firsthand. And you know, it's the kind of parent, it's like very easy. You could see the way the child's parented and you get, well, like, yeah, of course, that kid's gonna end up being a criminal. And yet we never go back to the parents and charge them when the inevitable occurs. Even though Crumbley's, yeah, it's partially their fault. I agree. 90% of violent criminals in prison right now, it's also partially the fault of the parents. So I don't see how we justify only charging these parents and not all of the others who are at least just as culpable. But then on the other hand, do I actually want to see all those parents charged? Probably not, because then now we've really opened a can of worms that I don't know how you close it again. And again, I don't know where the limiting principle is. Once you start charging parents criminally for the terrible things their kids do, it just, eventually 90% of the parents in the country are in jail. That's where it leads. And I don't think that this has all been thought. I don't think anyone's really thinking. Some people have thought this through, but I don't think that we've quite faced the implications here enough. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.